Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's going on, Fantasy Champs? Welcome to Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. It is week 11. We're going to talk about trade targets today. My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me as always. What's poppin', Rick? Hardo?
What's up?
Like I said, yeah, trade targets should be an interesting program. As we like to do our Friday/Saturday show, keep it real, keep it slow, or not slow, keep it fast. Try to get you information in and out the door so you can enjoy your Saturday. Prepare yourself for something. I guess this is our show that this is our show that I guess carries in content because the rest of our content dies.
Yeah.
In terms of waiver wire, like after Wednesday, it's kind of useless. Starts and sits is useless after Sunday. The Thursday night preview show is useless after Thursday night. But this one, you could watch next week and still be like, okay, I'll go get that guy.
Yeah, true.
So, Saturday, I guess it doesn't really matter. You can listen to it on Monday if you want. But, yeah, we're going to talk about trade targets today. So, what's happening, Rick?
What's up? I will say it's probably better to listen before Sunday when these guys pop off.
Usually there's some
Although on this list this week, I don't know if any of them's going to pop off. So,
yeah, didn't we have Mahomes last week on the list, and then he got 41?
We did. Yep.
Or 30 plus.
I ended up beating you in the league that we're in because I had Mahomes.
Frick you.
And
you texted me, and I was enraged. I couldn't sleep. I didn't respond to you, but I saw it.
I didn't think you even saw it. I had a 1% chance of winning. Like, I didn't think I was going to win, and then I saw Mahomes got like 36.
Bro,
I was like, okay.
Sunday,
and Dale Henderson got like 9.
Going into Monday night, I'm in 7 leagues. I was winning 5 of 7. I only won 2.
Oh.
I got janked.
You know, anyway. In my leagues this year,
yeah,
I'm like fantastic in every league except 2 of them, and 2 of them I'm in with you. 10-man ban in our home league.
Wait, well, I mean, you're in almost every league with me. To be fair,
League of Ordinary Gentlemen is not going too well, but it's okay.
Me either.
It's average.
Okay, so in the League of Ordinary Gentlemen,
those are all my worst leagues though.
I have Cam Akers gone. Deshaun Watson I drafted in the hopes that he would come in.
That was
a mistake. And then the Fantasy Champions League, I just pooped this season.
That league I'm in too, about to go 9.
Michael Thomas, J.K. Dobbins, Miles Sanders, all gone. Monty was out for a good chunk of the season.
Yeah.
Chase Claypool's been out. Bob Tonyan, if you want to count him. So, and then I don't have a quarterback. So frick
that kind of hurts.
But either way, yeah, I'll go over at the end of the season how my teams are doing because it doesn't look too hot right now. Except for a couple leagues where I'm just kicking butt and taking names. 50-50. 50-50 is what my season's turning into. But anyway, so let's get into trade targets for week 11. Before we do that, check our website, fantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other podcast platforms, leave a review, share this pod with your friends. If you're watching on YouTube, click the bell for notifications, subscribe, and then like and comment down below any questions you have about trades. Maybe next year we'll do Grade Your Trade.
Grade Your Trade.
We'll grade your trades. It'll just be a segment, 10-minute segment where we go online and we find people's ridiculous trades and we grade them Fs. It's already got. I'll come up with a little animation on the screen that'll be like F.
That'd be kind of funny.
But anyway, so you ready to get into trade targets, my dude?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so there are some interesting guys. There's definitely some buy lows, and then there's some guys that I think they're all buy lows at this point.
Yeah.
There's no buy highs here.
The first guy's kind of a buy high. I mean, he has been great last week, but
yeah, I guess he's a buy low for 1 week. I just typed in his nickname into the thing, and I was like, whoa, that's not right. But it's Marquise Hollywood Brown. Get you some Hollywood. He has had a really, really good season, and that was kind of like, I liked him as like a low-end wide receiver 2 play when I drafted him, and I didn't have any projections that he could like break out and have a really good season, but his target share actually has been there in a surprising sense. So far this year, he has 82 total targets. What do they have left? 7 games?
Mm-hmm.
Six or 7 games, and he's definitely on pace at this point of getting to 120 to 130 targets, which I didn't think was possible, because if you look at the previous year, he had 100 targets in his second year, and he played all 16 games. So I was like, this team's not going to throw it that much, and I was a little more concerned about that, and I think you had more concerns about them not throwing it at all. But they've been getting him the ball, especially over the last couple weeks. And so far this season, he is in PPR leagues the wide receiver 7. I believe in the half PPR it's the same. And he's been really, really, really good. So this week he has an easy matchup against Miami. Only scored 6 points. He still had 13 targets. He had a lot of drops. That was a bad game for him.
He, I think, leads the NFL in drops.
Yes, sir. Drops don't matter. In case you weren't wondering.
They don't matter when you get targeted 14 times a game, no matter what.
Yes, that is fair. Like Deontay Johnson last year, ended up wide receiver 2, and he had led the league in drops. He actually, I think, Marquise Brown has more drops than Johnson had last year.
That's crazy.
But yeah. So anyway, Hollywood is just I think he's an insanely good buy for your team. I think down the stretch, you look at games against Chicago, Cleveland, twice. Green Bay is a tough matchup, but then you have Cincinnati, Los Angeles. So there's just a lot of really easy matchups for Marquise Brown down the stretch that just make you think. And he's one of those guys that I see the schedule and I'm like, ooh, maybe I need to get that guy.
I think where we were both wrong in the sense, I mean, I was obviously much more wrong on Hollywood Brown. You like the player. Was one thing though we both said was the Ravens don't throw the ball a lot, which they don't. They never have. And all of a sudden this year they've thrown the ball more than they ever have with Lamar. I mean, the last 2 weeks, Lamar has 43 and 41 pass attempts.
Wow.
He's getting at least 30, it feels like, every week, 30 to 40. In the beginning of the year, he had a couple of 20s in there, but at least lately seems like he's getting at least 30 plus pass attempts every week. And last year he was getting like 20, he was pretty much in the 20s every week. And he only had, I want to say 2 games the entire season where he threw the ball over. Yeah, he only had 2 games last year where he threw the ball over 30 times. So it's crazy difference. They're throwing the ball way, way more this year. I wonder if that has something to do with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards and all those guys being out.
That could actually, that's very, very good point. That could be the case.
Yeah. But either way, Hollywood Brown has definitely been the top target in that offense. And now all of a sudden they're a high passing offense. So he's been very good. Obviously the drops have hurt. But he's still, regardless, has been a low end wide receiver 1. And he has a great schedule the rest of the season. I think you can still buy him it's going to be expensive at this point to get Hollywood, but not as expensive as it could be. And it could end up being worth it.
Yeah, definitely. It just goes to show you, like, a lot of people were out on Hollywood. They kind of thought he wasn't going to be that great. And then, he ends up getting the target share that you would anticipate a top receiver to get. And, he ends up with a really, really good season. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how he ends the season, because there's still basically half the year to go. But yeah, I definitely think it's a good buy, especially down the stretch here. This point in the season, if you know your team is going to make the playoffs, this is where you start making trades. Okay, you're 8-1, 7-2. You know you're going to make the play. That makes the playoffs. 7-8 wins makes the playoffs in most leagues. So, if you know you're going to make the playoffs, week 11, week 12, these 2 weeks are really weeks where you got to start looking to make some trades for guys that have good late season schedules that could absolutely shred. Last week we talked about Devonta Smith. he has a really good end of season schedule, and he could have a Brandon Ayuk-like second half where he has a really good season. And I think the same thing you could say for Marquise Brown here, where the second half is easy, and I think if he puts it together, he could really dominate in the second half and get you a fantasy championship.
Agree.
But anyway, let's talk about number 2. Rick was out on this one, so I'm curious.
Yeah, I don't know about this one.
He's going to play devil's advocate here.
Go ahead.
My revived love of Miles Sanders. Was that loud enough?
Yeah, that was good.
So, Miles Sanders. I literally put don't judge next to this one because this is a cheap as crap move.
Okay.
And it could be beneficial for you in the long term for the season. Okay. So he's been on IR, and obviously that's going to make any player cheap. But Miles Sanders pre-IR was having a tough year. He had 15 points the first game, looked really good. 15 carries, 4.93 yards a carry. He had a good yards per catch rate. He had a really good first game. No touchdown scored in that game. Then he played Sanford and Dallas, who have been pretty good against defense. He scored 6-7. And then he played KC Carolina. KC, easy matchup, 6.77. And then he got hurt against the Raiders and only scored 3 points in that game. So taking that game out. Basically, he was a touchdown away in every single game from having a decent week. But those aren't really good numbers. 6 and 7 fantasy points a game are just, that's bad. It's not something you want to start. If you have you watched Eagles games, Rick?
A little bit.
So if you've been watching the Eagles, you kind of have seen a little bit of a resurgence of the offense that the Eagles should be running, which is a very run-friendly offense that centers around RPOs and Jalen Hurts. Or just straight run options, not even RPOs, just run options. You either hand it off to the running back or you take it yourself.
Yeah.
And that is where Jalen Hurts kind of excels. He has the second highest, I believe, quarterback run rate in the NFL right now. And probably one behind Lamar, I would guess. But I'm not going to.
He's the QB4 in the season as well.
Jalen Hurts?
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, what I have noticed is that the Eagles with Boston Scott and Jordan Howard and Kenneth Gainwell to some extent have been running, whatever week it ends up being, each one of those guys actually does well fantasy-wise, and they've been rushing the ball a lot more than they did in the early part of the season. And Miles Sanders was getting workhorse snap percentage. He was getting 65% to 70% of the snaps before he got hurt. But he was only, you look at those games where he had 60, 64, 75, 83% snap percentage, and he had 2, 7, 11, and 9 carries. They were throwing it way too much early half of the season, and that goes to show. They played San Francisco, they played Dallas, they played Kansas City, they played Carolina back when they were okay, they played Tampa. They were getting blown out by these teams because the Eagles suck. But now down the stretch, their rushing attack has gotten better because they played Detroit, they played Denver, who don't score a lot of points, and they were in that game. They're playing New Orleans this week, which is a tough matchup, but then they play the Giants, the Jets, Washington, Giants, Washington. Are all those winnable games for the Eagles?
Sure.
So they're not going to get their doors blown off, which is going to stop them from rushing the ball with Miles Sanders. I think he's going to come back. He's going to get a lot of rushing work. He's obviously going to get the same pass-catching work that he got, and if he starts scoring touchdowns down the stretch here, like Jordan Howard has, like Boston Scott has, like Kenneth Gainwell has at times, then you're going to see a little bit of a resurgence from Miles Sanders. Now, this is the hope that you get with Miles Sanders. I'm not projecting that this is definitely going to happen, and I'm 100% buying in like Miles Sanders 2 years ago. He could go down the same stretch of getting 7 points a game and just completely crap himself. But what is the risk that you're running looking at Miles Sanders and being like, okay, let's make a trade for Sanders. Let's get out there, put an offer in. It's not going to cost you too much. And if they accept the deal and you get Miles Sanders for cheap and he has a resurgence in the second half of the season, starting with that Giants game, if he comes back at that point, then you could end up with a really good flexible, or startable RB2 that your team ends up running with rest of season. Your fantasy team, that is, running with rest of season. So I don't think there's any real risk attributed with this because it's not going to cost you a lot, and you get him on your team. And if he breaks out in the second half of the season, has a really good stretch, then you have a running back that you can rely on with a good schedule. So I think that's why I would buy Miles Sanders at this point. But I know Rick has differing opinions, but I just wanted to share my thoughts.
Yeah, he better not cost you a lot. That's all I'm going to say. He better not cost.
Don't go out there and buy, send your whole house over.
Yeah, this is the definition of a buy low. Because look, if you're going to get him for super cheap, it takes one of your crappiest bench players and maybe $10 in waiver budget, and you go get Miles Sanders. Fine, because I think what you said with his end of season schedule is the only thing that makes me be like, okay, I can see that. The Giants, the Jets, Washington, Giants again, Washington again. That's a great schedule. Now he does have the Saints this week, so maybe hold off on that till next week. But you did say you think he's going to get the same workload on the ground.
I don't necessarily think he's going to get the same workload. Jordan Howard was nothing, and he continues to be nothing. And I don't think Boston Scott is going to take a whole. To me,
I think the Eagles are dumb. So I think Jordan Howard is still going to have a goal line work. I don't think Boston Scott is going to take much from Sanders. I think Sanders will get more, but Scott will be involved. Mm-hmm. And even if that's not the case, Sanders in the beginning of the season was not really getting used at all anyway, or as much as you would like. And yes, they're playing worse teams. You would expect them to run the ball more. But again, I think the Eagles are dumb. Will they confidently say that? I'm not sure. I really have no idea. I don't know if they're going to run the ball more. And again, if they do, I think, like I said, Jordan Howard's going to get goal line work. Boston Scott's going to be involved in some ways. They might even use Kenneth Gainwell still in the passing game a little bit. And there's a chance they use all four running backs, or at least three of them, and they might healthy scratch Gainwell.
So you think that the running back situation is going to be spread out? And
I think Sanders is still going to get majority of the work, but for fantasy purposes,
because I think you see guys get hurt, right? Like in Tennessee, you see Derrick Henry get hurt, and right now they've had to run with Foreman and Peterson, and there's just a committee. I think the same thing happened here with Philly, is that their top dog running back went out, the guy that they were giving workhorse carries to, not carries, but workhorse snap percentage to, and then he gets hurt, and they slide in four running backs in his place.
The Eagles view Miles Sanders like the Titans view Derrick Henry.
No. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying their guy got hurt, and they replaced him with three running backs. Right. That's my point.
I agree with that. But those three running backs, especially Jordan Howard and Boston Scott, which is so disgusting, has been playing really well. Mm-hmm. And has it been because they've played horrible teams? Yes, it is. But do the Eagles coaching staff look at it like that? No. They're like, oh, these guys have played well.
Sirianni brickhead.
Right. So
no, and that's a fair point. And like I said earlier, it's I look at the risk for Sanders, and it's really not that high. And I'm also not, like I said earlier, I'm not saying that Sanders is going to end up with a massive, he's going to end up being this breakout, bust out running back. I'm saying there's a chance of that happening, where the more likely scenario, I guess, is him being similar to or a little better than, because they've changed their scheme to what he was earlier in the season. That would be my expectation. Now, if he breaks out and has a really good stretch, that's great, but that's kind of where my head's at this point with Miles Sanders. It's not even
No, it's fair.
Because I agree with you. I think they're stupid enough to do that.
Right.
But even before that, he was getting obviously against Dallas and Kansas City, there was really no workload for him. But there were games where he was getting 15, 16 touches, and then there were games where they were getting blown out and they just started trying to chuck the ball and they were going 3 and out and all this crap. It was just, I don't know, if you watch the Eagles all year like I have with Jalen Hurts, it's just a cluster. It's all over the road, especially in the first half while they had Miles Sanders on the field. I think what Miles Sanders provides to them really quickly is like Jordan Howard. You look at his snap percentages, right? He's averaging like 12 to 15 carries a game with Miles Sanders out. Jordan Howard's snap percentages right now are averaging 30%. So they're putting him in downs they're going to run.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Kenneth Gainwell goes out there. What are they doing? Passing.
Right.
They're predictable. And against good defenses like New Orleans, that's going to be a tougher situation for Philly being predictable. But for Miles Sanders, if and when he does come back, he offers them a multi-versatile running back that can run and can, get stuff done in the passing game. And so it makes defenses think twice about what the Eagles are actually going to be doing. So I think they figured themselves out. The question is, does Miles Sanders get the same workload? And that's what I'm saying is like, if Miles Sanders gets the same workload, this figured out offense is going to be good for Miles Sanders because he's going to get red zone work. He's going to get all this opportunity that he didn't have before, and they're going to run a lot more in games that they're in. So, I mean, it could go either way. You could be right. They could just go with 5 running backs and kill all of our souls, but I think it's worth the risk to take the option on it.
All right. No, that's fair. Like I said, he's just got to be cheap.
All right. Tell us about the next guy, Ricardo.
All right. So we got Javonte Williams again. In the beginning, is this like the 4th time we've had him on the show?
Yeah. And I continue to believe he's a good buy.
I think I said like in week 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
I said the week that I think if he's gonna take over this year, the week to watch would be after the bye week, because that's what happened with J.K. Dobbins last year. The first 10, 11 weeks of the year, he was kind of splitting with Mark Ingram. He was actually getting less work than Mark Ingram, and then all of a sudden they just switched roles, and J.K. Dobbins went from like 30% snap percentage to like 55, 60% snap percentage, and was getting the most work of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And ended up finishing the year getting like 13 fantasy points a week. And I think that could very well happen with Javonte. And at this point in the season, he's probably very cheap for most teams. Yeah. What do you think?
It's about that time.
It's about time.
So if you look at his snap percentage this week, Rick, it looks like a number 1 running back. Not a number 1 running back, but it looks like he's starting to take the starting job. 57%.
I kind of like that. I kind of like that a little bit.
Could be good. He did only have 10 touches, 11 opportunities.
That's gross.
So, yeah, it's there are weeks where he can be really good, and then there are weeks where it's just not great, and it's kind of like he's basically a running back right now that's touchdown dependent. So like if you desperately need a start, you throw him in there, hope he scores a touchdown, and if he does, you end up with a good week. If he doesn't, he ends up with like 5 or 7 points, somewhere in that vicinity. But what I've seen from, and I was talking to Rick before the show, Javonte Williams had a 30-yard touchdown run or something around there called off this week. And that would have put him in the 14 or 15 point category for the week. And I think he is clearly the better running back to Melvin Gordon. Like, it's starting to show, and he's so efficient on the ground. It's insane. He has 5 yards a carry so far this year, which is really good. His yards per catch is not great, so I think he needs to improve in that category. But he has shown all season that he has the opportunity to be this really, really good running back, and I think that's why he's a good buy. And then the stretch of games down, like I just get sweaty when I look at it.
Yeah.
Chargers, Kansas City, Detroit, Cincinnati, Raiders. Chargers again.
Is there a bad matchup there?
No. Like, this is what I'm talking about. This week 11 bye, go to that team, say, listen, it's been a cute start to the season, but he's not getting it done. Play a little games, and then get Javonte.
Yeah.
It's easy money. Like, I think, it could end up like Gus Edwards, like Rick said, or it could end up like, they continue splitting snaps right down the middle. And if that happens, then but it's like you're not buying Javonte as a top level. If you're in a redraft league, you're not buying Javonte as like a top level running back right now.
Yeah, true.
You're just buying him for the chance that he becomes that. It's a similar buy to what Miles Sanders is, right? It's kind of like it probably is going to cost the same. And there's a chance that the guy could break out down the stretch and end up being really good. So it's worth it.
Yeah.
And you're looking at that snap percentage and you're thinking, oh, that's not great. And then you see last week. I see last week only. Just put my hand on the rest of the stuff and say 57%. Yeah. Okay. He's starting to take it.
Last week gets you sweaty a little bit, even though he fantasy-wise didn't have a great game.
Melvin, I just want to look really quick. Melvin Gordon had 43% snap percentage.
So. Yeah, it's literally only those two guys.
Yep. They literally just reversed. But anyway, we're going to tell you about one more running back here before we get to one final buy, and that one should go real quick. But it's Clyde, and there was a lot of hate around Clyde, and he's been on our show a couple of times here for trade targets. But early in the season, he was getting 60 to 70% snap percentage. He had 8, 2, 15, 18, and then he got hurt against Buffalo, so I don't count that game. But he was basically averaging roughly 10 points per game.
Mm-hmm.
And Clyde, I mean, he was disappointing in the fact that a lot of people anticipated him to be a lot better of a pass-catching running back, and he hasn't been what people drafted in dynasty leagues, and he hasn't been what people thought he was going to be. Like they thought he was going to be this top 5 running back, like, and he hasn't been that. And I don't know if he can start pass catching like Darrell Williams is. But it looks like Clyde's role is to open things up for Mahomes because they hand it off to him, and the guy averages like 5 yards a carry and does well on the ground, but they don't run it a lot, and it opens things up for Mahomes to make plays down the field because defenses have to worry about Clyde. Whereas you look at Darrell Williams come in, and everyone's like, oh, Darrell Williams is better than Clyde Edwards. I'm like, okay, that's not true, first off. It's far from true. And Darrell Williams, no one's thinking about. It's the last guy on the field. You be a defensive coordinator in the NFL and face the Kansas City Chiefs and try to figure out what to do with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes running all over the field. When you don't have to think about the running back, that makes shutting those other guys down really easy. And then you end up with Darrell Williams streaking up the field on a wheel route, catching a touchdown from Patrick Mahomes last Sunday. Clyde, you actually got to think about. Either way.
Yeah, like I said, Darrell Williams actually blows on the ground. Like he's horrible.
He's not good.
He has 3.6 yards a carry in the season.
But everyone talks about how Clyde, like he was supposed to be a good pass catching running back, and he has yet to post 70 or more pass catching yards in a game.
I think he is still a very good pass catching back. He just doesn't get targeted at all.
Yeah, he's posted
Darrell Williams. This week, all of a sudden, got 9 targets.
His highest receiving yards total is 70.
In a game?
In a game.
I mean, that is pretty good for running back.
That's good, but after that, it's like 59 and 40 last season. This year, he hasn't been over 29.
Yeah.
But no, I think...
only getting 2 or 3 targets a game. It's hard to get over 30 receiving yards.
That's fair.
2 or 3.
Right. And I think so. The question is, do the Chiefs start treating him more like Darrell Williams and getting him involved in the passing game as their because he has to be,
I hope so.
He has to be their third option.
Yeah.
They don't have a third option. Hardman blows, and everyone else in that Byron Pringle, is that who you're throwing to as a second guy, like or third guy? Like no. So, but I'm looking at Clyde, and I'm thinking like he's got to be involved in the passing game more often for them, I think, offensively to have success, because you look every time a running back gets hurt. In 2019, Kareem Hunt was caught on video beating somebody and got cut. Okay?
Right.
Feels like eons ago, but that happened. And when that happened, Damian Williams came in and they started passing it to him. They started rushing it with him. They did all this stuff. And then what did they do in 2020? They went and got a running back. They got Clyde in the first round. And the expectation was that they were going to pass it to him
running back,
like they do Damian Williams, which they have not done. Last season, they kind of did. but then they wheeled off it. I just don't know what they're doing with Clyde, and I think this is just.
You know what's hilarious?
Go ahead.
I think one of Clyde's player comps was James White coming out of
That's
college.
gross, bro.
It is gross.
I mean, it's a good.
He was literally known for pass catching.
I just don't.
They don't use him.
I just don't know how. I don't know why the Chiefs aren't using him. It's not like, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, maybe he's just a bad pass catcher." And I'm like, I don't think that's it. So when the Chiefs' offense is on, there's no need to throw it to the running back. And I think that's what happens a lot of times, is that if they're going off, they don't need to throw it to the running back, so they choose not to. Whereas if Travis Kelce's the only target on the field, because Tyreek Hill's getting his head cut off at the top end of the defense, and they're not getting big plays, then they go to the running back, which is what they did this past week. So I don't know. We'll see what happens to Clyde. The big thing for Clyde, though, is that he is cheap. He's not going to be as cheap as Sanders and Williams.
Yeah,
but he's not a bad, like, he's not going to be a hard buy. It's not going to be like you're going to be, because this guy's been on the IR for like 5 to 6 weeks, and Rick just recently made a trade for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and he can kind of give you the price range of where that is. But I think this is a good buy, and especially down the stretch of the season. He does have Pittsburgh in Week 16, which is a tougher matchup, but Vegas, Los Angeles, Cincinnati, easy matchups. And then he has Denver as well, which hasn't been tough on the season. And obviously, you got to eat that Week 12 bye next week. But I don't even if he plays against Dallas this week. I'm thinking that he's probably going to be held out past the bye. But that second half stretch looks pretty good. Besides the Pittsburgh game,
so it is a very good schedule. I think with running backs being valuable too. What I was able to get for him in our league was, what would you say, basically a wide receiver 2. Middle wide receiver 2.
Yeah. I mean,
low end.
When Brown is playing, he's probably
Antonio Brown. He's. I mean, he hasn't played in a couple of weeks, but yeah, when he's playing, he's a wide receiver.
Mid-range wide.
He's probably like a high end wide receiver 2.
High-end wide receiver 2 is probably where you would have to sell for Clyde.
But I also got Clyde. I got Clyde and Chase Claypool, who has not been good. But I was basically able to get like a wide receiver, a lower end wide receiver, and Clyde. Right. So I mean, that price isn't like, that's not crazy for Clyde.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I think it's worth the buy.
Yeah, I agree. So go get yourself some Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We're going to throw 3 running backs on this list because it's a scarcity.
It is.
You
gotta get those running backs.
You gotta get running backs on your squad in order to win. Rick knows that firsthand.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
But anyway, let's talk about the last guy, which is TJ Hawkinson. And Hawk is, when he's playing good, he's a top 5 tight end. Unfortunately, he has not been playing good. And I don't even know if it's on him.
Does he even have a touchdown? Okay, he has 2, and it was in week 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Where's 2 touchdowns?
It's been tough.
This is what I projected him at, though. I had him for 4 touchdowns the entire season, or 5.
It's been a tough season for Hawk. There's been some good games, though. I think against tougher matchups, he's struggled. But there's been, there's been some bust games, but I think 6 or more fantasy points is probably a good game for a tight end at this point.
Honestly, so, yeah. If you can get 7+.
Like, I would say he's had on the season so far, like 3 bust games if you include this week. But the big thing about Hawk has been that he's been getting 11, 12, or I should say 9 to 11 targets per game. And the bust games that he has had against Baltimore, 2 points, 2 targets. Against Minnesota, 3 points, 3 targets. Yep. Against Pittsburgh, no points, 1 target. It's tough, but there are going to be games like that with Hawkinson. He plays for the Detroit Lions, and his quarterback is Jared Goff. So that's what's going to happen. And the second the Lions realize that their 2 best offensive players, which drives me nuts. They figured out this week with Swift. He didn't have a great game, but he got 30 touches.
Yep.
Takes this brickhead offensive coordinator and brickhead coach to figure out that their 2 best players are Hawkinson and Swift. And I know there are guys covering Hawkinson, but you got to throw the ball in his direction. Yeah. You can't play scared. Like, this is your best player. So anyway, that's me ranting about TJ Hawkinson because I have him in several leagues. But no, I think Hawkinson's a good buy, and I think it's because he's in a position where he has to be targeted, and I think the Lions know that. And at some point, his target share is going to come. Like it will happen this week against Cleveland. The target share will come up. And
Yeah,
it'll be around 9 to 11
there is a
targets.
chance Jared Goff doesn't play this week.
Why?
Just a heads up. The thumb injury, I think it says.
Oh, great.
Oblique. Never mind. He hasn't practiced yet this week.
That
and
is oblique.
Tim Boyle might start. So
Shove a knife in my heart. Hopefully he throws it to TJ Hawkinson.
yeah, I mean, who knows? He might throw 6 interceptions, but at least he might throw it to Hawkinson 10 times, which would work for you and me because I have him in a league as well. But yeah, I mean, I would buy him too. He's super cheap. Probably can get him as like a low tight end 1. And when he's on, he's very, very good. He's probably like a top 5 tight end, maybe 5th, but still. I think the player himself is very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll figure it out. It's just the offense, man, that just is very annoying. Jared Goff is not good. Sometimes they will target him 9 to 10 or 11 times, and then other weeks they'll target him.
Done it literally like 6 games.
Yeah, it makes no sense. It's just so inconsistent.
Like in games when they target him, he gets 8 or more targets. In games they decide not to target him, he gets 3 or under.
Right. With how bad tight ends are, unless your name is Travis Kelce and maybe George Kittle now. He's had 2 good games in a row. But yeah, if you're not Travis Kelce or George Kittle, and even Waller hasn't been great, Kyle Pitts has been up and down. The tight end position blows. So go get TJ Hawkinson while he's cheap and could potentially be a top 5 tight end.
I don't know if I told you this, but in the home league, after his Week 13 matchup against Philly, I tried to sell him for Kyle Pitts.
How'd that go?
In the home league, I thought it was going to go well.
Yeah, that was your first mistake. The guy who owns Kyle Pitts in that league thinks he's
rookie tight end.
better than Travis Kelce.
Just rookie tight end. It's just rookies in general. It was close.
Okay.
But he was like the tight end 3 at the time. Pitts is like tight end like 8. And I was like, maybe he'll look at those numbers. And
didn't.
Never mind. It's funny too because Hawkinson's still the tight end 5 on the year.
In PPR.
In PPR. No, that's half PPR.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It says PPR 5. And then standard 10. Is he the tight end 10 in standard leagues then?
No idea. That's gross, bro.
That is
it's
gross.
because his fantasy points are coming from not from
because it's all
touchdowns,
catches. It's not touchdowns. Yeah,
that's what
it's
happens.
like Dawson Knox. He's missed like 3 games, but he's still tight end 6 in standard.
If you're still in a
all
standard
catches.
league, what are you doing?
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
That should not even be like that should not be in like, okay, I'm all for like different options, but that should not be like standard.
No, standard now is PPR.
Yeah,
that is what
should
standard
definitely
is.
be PPR. Wasn't until I actually joined a PPR league. I'll scoot in on the league next year.
Okay, maybe.
And tell everyone at the draft and practice with PPR numbers and strategy.
Yeah. The problem with telling people at our home draft, when you tell people at the draft, they're like, "Oh, I don't want to change it now. We're already here."
I know. I'm like, what the frick, guys? Well, I mean, it's an intense league, so
yeah, that's why you gotta change it beforehand, though.
I should have changed. Because we got rid of defenses, but no kickers this year. And I was rallying the votes, and there was multiple people complaining that they wanted to get rid of kickers, but they didn't want to do it because they've been practicing with kickers. And I'm like, okay, first off, is practicing drafting with kickers really that big a strategy?
I don't know. It's dumb. It's all dumb.
I'm like, if you're drafting a kicker, you're usually doing it in between rounds 10 and 11. I mean, 10 to 15. And I'm like,
yeah.
So what strategy is there between those rounds? At that point, you just let players fall to you and hope that a guy you like comes there because it's funny. I can't figure it out. But yeah, no, PPR, that's a big like change.
Right.
That's a draft lottery change.
I don't know, man.
That's when you're next gonna compete.
Yeah, better do it next year then,
bro. 3 and 7. Okay. I I have to beat you this week because I want to make the playoffs. If I win this week, there's a good shot. I'm at 90% chance according to Fantasy Pros League Analyzer.
So you can take one L for me.
That's what I'm saying. If you beat me this week, I don't know if I'll be sad. Because that means you win a game. I kind of want you to make the playoffs.
Kind of alive. Now you don't, bro, because then I'll have Clyde come back.
If you win and you get to 7-7, okay,
Javonte.
you might be able to pull it off. You might have to fight with 4 teams, but
I don't know if 7-7 will even get me in, to be honest. So
you have to fight with 4 teams to get in, but you might have a shot.
Yeah, we'll see.
But anyway, trade targets, week 11. There you have it. Go get yourself Hollywood Brown, Miles Sanders, Javonte Williams, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and TJ Hawkinson. It's been an interesting week 11. Next week is when most of your trade deadlines happen, week 12. So that might be our last trade target show, but we'll see. Talk to you Monday, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube, and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.